up to this point, was comedy something you always wanted to do as a kid, or how did it?
Well,
Form?
no. I used to know like all the cats who was hustlers and athletes, so they could or the big strong cats, so they could get brides doing that way. But all I could do was make people laugh. So I'd always been the guy like we used to call it bagging. So I would talk about somebody's mama or argue, so it was always like that. But I remember specifically the cats. They had a barber shop. They used to do taxes, and they would sell VCRs, and they was just hustlers, right? So they were also concert promoters. So they said I would talk shit in the barbershops. They said if you think you're so funny, we doing a concert with Robin Harris and Blue Magic at this joint called the Turtle Experience, and you come up there and we'll let you do it. And so they didn't pay me, but all the dudes from the barbershop walked me to the stage like they were my bodyguards. And I went on stage, and I knew that was what I was going to do for the rest of my life.
So you killed it your first time?
No. I said I knew that was going to do for the rest of No, I didn't have any material. All I did was talk shit. I just talked about people, and that was pretty much it. And so, but I understood, like, all those moments when I felt sympathy for somebody, when I thought, oh, I feel bad for these cats. I wondered, and I knew I would be something. At that moment, I knew exactly what it would be.
Okay. And you were how old?
21, 22.
Okay, so at 21, 22, you just got married.
Right.
Well, I guess you're working for the LA Times.
I was working for the LA Times.
$4 an hour?
Yeah. Well, yeah, when I got married, I was making like the minimum wage. And my wife laughs about this, but for 3 months, she made more money than me. She made $625. So I made $475. She makes $625. And I said, I ain't going to have no woman making more money than me. So I started working hard at the Times, and I got a promotion to a detail clerk. Then I got a promotion to an assistant manager and a manager. And then I was a circulation manager in Ventura County. So and I did all that while I was trying to get a comedy career and take care of a family and purchase a home. So it was turbulent.
You start hustling in the comedy circuit.
Right.
So what starts to happen?
So you would go to the Comedy Act Theater where Robin Harris was the host, and you would get on there. You would go to Maverick Flats. J. Anthony Brown would let you on. He give you $10, and you get fried chicken. You could have all the fried chicken and non-alcoholic beverages you could have. You used to be able to work at the Golden Tail when they were cleaning up drinks. So in California, all the drinks had to be on LA. All the drinks had to be off the floor at 2. But it was a dance club, so between 1:45 and 2, between 1:30 and 2, they put comedians up where they was cleaning the drinks. And if you was funny, they gave you $100. So I would always go down there at the last minute and make $100. And so that was kind of my thing. But the real thing in LA happened for me when a cat named T.K. Kirkland, who hosted the Birdland West, he went on tour with NWA. That big tour from the movie, they went on that tour, and he left it to me. He left the Birdland West to me. And he was gone, and by the time they came back, the cat named Gregory Sanders that had the joint kept me. And so I had the Birdland West, and I was still working. And then Robin Harris passed on, and Louis Dix came through, and Joe Torre came through, and they got busy, so I got that club. And then I got a club called Zeno's on Century, so I would make $350 on Tuesday, at the club. Then I would make $750 at the club at the Comedy Act Theater for that day, and then I would make another $1,000 for the Golden Tail for Zeno. So before you knew it, I was making enough, $2,000 a week doing comedy.
Okay, so you're making more money doing comedy than your LA Times gig.
Right. But it wasn't stable, and I had a wife and kids and benefits and all that kind of stuff. But how I left the LA Times is I passed out on stage at the Comedy Act Theater. They took me off work. Joe Torre, Jamie Foxx drove me to the hospital in Torrance, and the doctor said, you're exhausted, you're not getting your REM sleep. So they took me off work for 6 weeks, and eventually I kept going off work, but they wouldn't let me come back to work because I wasn't rested, because I was still working, and I was getting all of my money from the LA Times. And a cat named Ron Wolf kept my benefits alive for a year and gave me a discretionary bonus, and he said, don't come back, you're supposed to do something else. And that cat later on lost his job and his woman behind doing that for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you finally leave your stable job.
Sure.
Right now, you bought a house.
I had bought a house, yeah.
Ain't nothing worse than that mortgage.
Right. Right.
That you
and
know
a
you
woman
have
who
to
won't
pay.
work and a woman who won't work and keep getting knocked up. I'm like, what the fuck are you? She would always be pregnant. But the funny thing about it is, so we had a little savings. I would hustle, but I had 3 kids and a mortgage, and so shit got tight. And I remember my manager was a cat named Tony Spires at the time. He has this thing called the Barry Black Comedy Competition. He was my manager. And he said he couldn't get me an audition to the HBO. They did those HBO 30-minute specials. So they did it at this place called the Townhouse. He couldn't get me an audition, but he said, you can host. So I said, fuck it, I'll host. So it was J. Anthony Brown and Eddie Griffin and Jamie Foxx. And they were all auditioning for HBO specials. And I would come in, do 10 minutes, bring somebody else. Do 10 minutes, bring somebody else on. Do 10 minutes, bring somebody else on. I remember one, because I knew we needed the money. I wasn't even worried about the special. I knew it came with 30 grand and that could be a lick for us. So at the end of the night, the people from HBO said, you didn't have an audition, but we're giving you a special. And all I said was, how much is that? And so they gave me 30 grand, and that was really kind of how it, that's all I've ever done since comedy, since that one thing.
Okay, so then you got an HBO comedy special.
I got the HBO half-hour special, and I was doing BET's Comic View at the time. I got BET's Comic View, which kind of was my first regular ascension into a lot of black people's household. But I was hosting a fashion show that Cheryl Lee Rife and Tommy Davidson were hosting. They were hosting. And I was the warm-up for that. And every time, knowing BET, and they were even more BET back then, the cameras kept going down. It was all kind of technical problems, and I kept doing jokes. And so it was like 4 hours it took, and I was always doing jokes. And so Bob Johnson, who owned it, flew me out to D.C. and he said he wanted to do this thing called Comic View, and would I do it? And I said, yeah.
Okay, and you were the host.
I was a host for 2 years.
Okay, so now you got real income coming in
Right.
from the comedy.
Mm-hmm.
What started changing your life once that started happening?
For me, I was so scared. I was always the first time I knew that something had it gotten different is my wife wanted a car. So we go down. Her car. She was driving a Hyundai. So my wife, it was time to get her a car. So we go down, and she wanted a Volvo, and I wasn't gonna tell her she couldn't have it. So we go down to this Volvo dealer, and they tell me how much it is, and I go, okay. And so she drives a Volvo, and I drive a Jetta. And so we had a house in Baldwin Hills. She had a Volvo, and I had a Jetta, and I was doing, my local stuff and BET, and I would also do warm-ups for the Fresh Prince. So it was nice.